I rise today to speak in opposition to the Republican budget resolution. And I would ask, there are some time restraints here, so I'll go as far in my speech as I can and then ask that the remainder be included for the record.
8 minutes.
And please let me know, is that done without objection? I'd like...
Without objection, yes.
Thank you very much. And could you tell me when 7 minutes have elapsed?
Senator will be notified.
Thank you, Mr. President. The budget that the Republicans in the Senate have presented imagines a future where we give even more tax breaks to millionaires and special interests while pulling the rug out from under working families, instead of addressing the major challenge facing our nation today, that middle-class families continue to face an economy rigged against them and their efforts to attain a better future for themselves and their family. This budget is fundamentally misaligned with the values of working Americans. Over the last 30 years, we've seen Wall Street and giant corporations make record profits, and middle-class families have been left behind. According to the Economic Policy Institute, over the last 30 years, wages for the top 1% rose almost 10 times as fast as those for the bottom 90%. Last year, Oxfam calculated that the 400 wealthiest individuals in our country have more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans. As a result, today, the concentration of income at the very top has risen to levels last seen in the 1920s, a time of vast inequality that ended in economic disaster for our nation. We have a responsibility to turn back this dangerous trend, and Minnesotans know how to do it. We've done it in Minnesota. We know how to grow our economy. We know that we grow it from the middle out, not the top down. Paul Wellstone had a saying, we all do better when we all do better. And we all do better when people in the middle have money to spend. And middle-class people are, the higher percentage of them are entrepreneurs. And there's more social and economic mobility when there's a strong middle class. Everybody does better. We all do better when we all do better. Even those at the top do better. We saw that during the Clinton administration, where every quintile was helped. Minnesotans know that a middle class budget would ensure health care access and fair workplaces for all Americans, so that families can concentrate on doing the best job they can as workers, as community members and parents, and as daughters and sons, instead of worrying about whether taking time off for a sick child will get them fired, or whether a long-term illness will bankrupt their family. So we could and we should be crafting a budget that supports middle-class families and those aspiring to be in the middle class, opening up economic opportunity, helping to lay the foundation for economic growth, and supporting the innovation that is key to a dynamic economy. We could have a budget that makes smart investments, finds sensible savings, and make sure that everyone is paying their fair share of taxes. But that is not the budget that the Republicans have crafted. Instead of stability and opportunity for middle-class Minnesotans, the Republican budget proposal would slash billions of dollars in investments that grow our economy. And the Republican budget would do nothing to close the loopholes that disproportionately benefit large corporations and super wealthy individuals. Since 2010, we've seen more than $4 in spending cuts for every $1 in revenue. The new Republican budget would make that situation even worse. This budget would bring that to $10 in spending for every $1 in revenue. And these cuts are coming directly at the expense of programs that serve middle and lower income families. The budget would cut over $6 million in job-creating research in my state of Minnesota alone, where we're making crucial investments in areas like renewable energy and health innovations. In fact, the Economic Policy Institute says the cuts in Republican budget would result in over $45,000 jobs lost in Minnesota. It also cut funds for workforce training to help Minnesotans compete for 21st century jobs. Over 35,000 workers would lose access to training opportunities, according to the Department of Labor. And considering the skills gap that every senator on this floor acknowledges to me that exists in their states, that just makes no sense whatsoever. We cut education, or the Republicans would cut education in this. We're talking about Head Start programs. Head Start, 620,000 children would be cut from Head Start. We'd lose those slots over 10 years. Let me tell you something about Head Start. Quality Head Start program, a quality early childhood education program, has return on investments of $7 to $16 per child, and I'll tell you why. Child's had a quality early childhood education is less likely to be in special ed, less likely to be left back a grade, has better health care outcomes. The girls are less likely to get pregnant in adolescence. They graduate from high school at a higher rate. They're more likely to go to college. They're more likely to graduate from college. They have better jobs, pay more taxes, and they're much less likely to go to prison. That's why you have an $8 to $16 return on for each kid that has a quality early childhood education. This is wrong. It's also wrong because kids are only 3 years old once, and they're beautiful children, and they deserve this, and their parents deserve this. This is wrong-headed. But the Republican budget not only hits early childhood education, it hits Pell Grants. Pell Grants. In Minnesota, 160,000 students last year were able to go to college because of this Pell Grant program. When my wife Franny and I went to college, a full Pell Grant paid for almost 80% of a full public college education. Today it pays for less than 35%. And further cuts will make it even harder for students to pay for college. And yet my colleagues want to cut Pell Grants further. We shouldn't be doing that, and that's why I'm offering an amendment to restore funding for Pell Grants in this budget. One of the keys to prosperity is infrastructure. The Republican budget does nothing to...
The senator has consumed 7 minutes.
7 minutes? Okay. Well, let me end then by just saying that this budget, and I'll ask that I did already ask that the rest of my remarks be included. But this is not even smoke and mirrors. This asks for, it makes up, it's riddled with gimmicks. And this is unfair, fundamentally unfair to working Americans. It's the same trickle-down economics that we've seen fail time and time again. So I urge my colleagues to reject this budget and embrace a real plan that supports middle-class families and those aspiring to be in the middle class. We need a budget that builds on the progress that we've made since the Great Recession and takes us to a better future for all Americans. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.